Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest today, Archimedes. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you? It's great to be here.
You smell great.
Surprise.
Alright, so first question. Where were you born?
I was born in Syracuse, Italy. You might know it's a little island called Sicily.
I've heard that's a nice place. And what do you do?
A lot of people know me as a physicist and just a physicist, but I was actually also a mathematician, inventor, engineer, and astronomer.
Wow, very impressive. And Ark, when were you born?
I was born in 287 BCE.
Now that's old. Let's move into your background a little bit. Please tell us about yourself.
Well, my background's pretty blurry just because being so old, a lot of historical documents were lost and most stuff wasn't even written. But what I can tell you is that in 269 BC, when I was 18 years old, I traveled to the Great Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and there I studied math, physics, whatnot, the whole shebang. And I studied there for a total of 10 years. And then I came back to Syracuse, where I spent the rest of my life.
Well, that is very interesting about the Great Library. But now can you tell us a little bit about why you found science so interesting while you were growing up?
Yeah, for sure. My dad, his name was Phidias, and he was an astronomer. So kind of having that science as I grew up, it just kind of, put me in that field, put me in science every day. And also, just growing up, I just loved math, man. Big math guy.
That's awesome. And along the idea of family, did you ever get married?
Well, I'm only going to tell you what you guys know. So, you don't think I got married. It's very unknown if I was ever married or had any kids.
Underground. I like it.
That's amazing. Moving away from your background, were there any crazy events that happened during your life?
Yes, there were, actually. Aside from my inventions, discoveries, and theories, I actually witnessed some death in my later part of my life. In the year 216 BCE, when I was 71 years old, the king of Syracuse died, and his son, a year later, was named king, but he got assassinated. This caused quite the uproar in Syracuse, and a civil war broke out, which ultimately led to the Romans taking it over and sieging it, which is where, unfortunately, I passed away in the year 212 BCE.
Bro had ops. But didn't you invent stuff to combat the Romans?
Yeah, I did. I actually made quite a few machines of war, or engines of war, I like to call them. One of them was called the Claw of Archimedes, and this claw, I just made it. It was really big, and it could carry very heavy things to help combat the Roman fleet. So we drop stuff onto the boats, beams and rocks. And it's also said that my Claw of Archimedes could pick up these ships, shake them, and throw them.
That's intense.
Now were the rest of your discoveries on purpose, or were they accident?
Well, my machines of war, they were very purposeful to kill the Romans. But yeah, most of them were just coincidental. Like my principle, the Archimedes principle. One day, I was at the baths after the king had told me to find out if his crown was made of pure gold. And so I went to the baths and I noticed that as I got in, the water level started to rise. And you might know what I said after this, but I yelled, "Eureka!" as I ran through the streets. I was able to, figure out the buoyancy of an object using the amount of the liquid displaced by the object, and also finding out this displacement allowed me to find the volume of his crown, which ultimately led to me finding the density, just using, density equals mass divided by volume, and I used this to find out if his crown was truly gold.
That's amazing. Why is your principle so important to you?
Well, the principle of buoyancy is just so important because it helps with, just finding out what floats and what doesn't. This later helped you guys out in the future with, engineering, shipbuilding, and fluid dynamics, stuff like that.
Awesome. What about your Archimedean screw?
My screw is very intricate. You see, if you try to imagine it, just imagine the part of the syringe where the fluid lies, and if you take this or like that part of the syringe, and you put a little smooth spiral staircase going in it, and if you tilt it 45 degrees and put one of the ends in the water and start to rotate it, the water will actually make its way up, which is very cool.
And why is that so important?
Well, back in my day, it was important because it helped get water out of the large holes of the ships. But in your guys' time, it helps with irrigation and moving water upwards to different patches of land.
Well, thank you so much, Archimedes. We don't want to take up too much of your time.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here, and hopefully I answered all your questions.